As much time as we have spent in and around Las Vegas, we've barely visited Lake Mead. On our last trip to hike the challenging Moapa Peak, which you can see next week, we stumbled upon a little gem of a hike inside Lake Mead National Recreation Area. 𝐌𝐿 Canyon is only about a 30-minute drive from Las Vegas, and it's a short yet fun hike that takes hikers to 3 slot canyons near the edge of Lake Mead. At the trailhead, there is a pretty large parking lot, so hopefully parking shouldn't be a problem, and as soon as our buddies Aaron and Voy rolled up, we were ready to begin the hike. This trail is a 3.2 mile long loop. It has 252 feet of elevation gain, and it is rated as moderate. As always, you're going to want to bring grippy shoes because not only do you have to go down this hill, but you have to climb back up it on your way back to the car. If you're looking for a fun adventure for you and your 4-legged friend, you're in luck because dogs are allowed here as long as they're on a leash no longer than 6 feet long and you clean up after them. After making your way down that first hill, you'll be crossing over a wash before you'll climb up a small hill, which will reveal even more beautiful scenery. There are a couple of things that are really important to know if you're hoping to do this hike. The first one is that it is not free to do. Since it is located inside the park, you will need a recreational use pass. At the time of the recording of this video, it was $25 per car. And the other thing that is really important is that this is not a maintained or well-marked trail. Even though this is a fairly short trail, it is a great idea to bring a tracker and download the offline maps from a website like AllTrails. We were really glad that we had our Garmin inReach with us because there is no cell reception on this hike, so if you're in trouble, you need a way to get help. We are now entering 𝐻𝐿 Canyon, and if you think the scenery is impressive here, just wait because it gets a whole lot better. Even though the canyon walls start off pretty far apart and not that tall, things won't stay that way for long. The further that you work your way into the canyon, the taller and closer they get. Soon you will find yourself surrounded by scenery that looks like it's from another planet. Everywhere you look, there will be towering red walls and overhanging boulders. As nice as the shade of the canyon was, I would probably not attempt this hike in hot temperatures because there are tons of parts that are exposed to the sun. There was one element of this hike that we were hopeful to see that did not end up panning out. If you look up on the canyon walls, you may notice nests, and that's because this canyon is not called 𝐻𝐿 Canyon for no reason. It's actually home to barn owls like the ones that you see here. It was kind of a bummer that we didn't see any of the owls, but I highly doubt that this is our last time hiking this trail, so hopefully we'll see them on our next visit. There are a lot of things that give this trail character, like rocky seats and corrugated metal tunnels. You will be crossing through 2 of these over the course of this hike, and I don't know why, but for some reason I find this really fun. After exiting the tunnel, the trail will curve off to the right before making its way through more picturesque canyons. As with all slot canyons, you definitely want to check the weather before you attempt this hike, and not just the weather overhead, but for miles around. You can see the power of the water here as it's carved away a lot of the rock. Flash floods can happen at a moment's notice, and unfortunately for a good part of this hike, there would be nowhere to run to get away from it. We have now come to a second tunnel, but this one is actually optional. If you like scrambling like we do, you will be climbing directly up the hillside here. This is, of course, the more difficult route. If you're looking for the easier route, and I couldn't blame you, you will be going through the tunnel and then looping around. There will be a trail on the other side of the tunnel that will take you up to the road that we're climbing up to. So if you have members of your party that want to do both options, you can do that and meet back up at the top. As we reached the paved road at the top of the hill, we looked across to the other side of the tunnel and saw a pack of coyotes. And we also figured that this would be a great place to practice our zombie walk since it looked like an apocalyptic road. When you're up on the paved road, you need to watch out for not only coyotes, but bicycles as well, because this is actually the River Mountain Loop bike path. You're going to be staying on this paved path for right around 1/4 of a mile. This is the reason why it is a great idea to download the route, because it will tell you when it's time to turn right and drop into the next wash. We once again ended up taking the more difficult way down into the wash, because we didn't realize that just a little bit further down there was a much more gradual descent down. We are now approaching the second mandatory tunnel on this trail, and it is pretty much custom fitted to V. The rest of us, on our other hand, had to bend forward a little bit to make our way through. Once we got to the other side, there was a second tunnel that we're not exactly sure where it goes, but even V was a little bit too tall for that one. At this point in the hike, we've come to yet another section that we loved, and it's this part right here. Some of the things that we're doing in this video, like this little stemming part right here, are just for fun and completely avoidable. But there are a couple of mandatory down climbs that will require just a little bit of technical skill. But before you can get to that down climb, you're going to have to squeeze through this tiny little gap. Once again, I swear this canyon was carved out with V in mind, but even the taller people didn't struggle too bad. Here's that down climb that I was telling you about. Our group is made up completely of canyoneers, so it was no problem at all. But if you don't have experience like we do, I would highly recommend sending your strongest climber down first so they can help everyone else. The technical section of this canyon is quite short, and after one more simple down climb, it's pretty much done. We spotted this cool Dryfall on the way out of the canyon, and I would really love to see it flowing, just not from the canyon. Even though this is a different slot canyon, it's very reminiscent of the one that we hiked into. The walls will slowly start to open up and fizzle out, and soon you're just hiking in a sandy wash. The trail does get very faint at this point, so once again you're going to need to rely on your GPS track. Eventually we did find a rocky border, confirming that we were going the right way though. And we also found a nice little vacation house for our buddy Aaron. Even though we didn't get to see the owls, we did get to see one cool flying thing because there was a helicopter doing practice water drops. It was a little bit warm on this hike, and I was kind of hoping he was going to drop some water on us. You're going to be on a nice flat trail for a little bit, but be careful because there were a couple of parts that were eroded away. And then eventually you're going to come to some rolling hills. It was at this point that we saw something interesting and kind of unexpected: seashells. It turns out that these are the shells of Asian freshwater clams. It's an invasive species that was accidentally introduced to the lake in the 1960s. The water level was way higher back then, so you wouldn't have been able to do this awesome hike because it was all underwater. Speaking of the lake, one last cool feature that you'll have on this hike is that you'll get picturesque lake views as you make your way towards the finish line. There were also some really neat rock formations that were beautiful in the sunset glow. At this point, you should be able to start seeing the car perched up on the hilltop. If you're in this area and you're looking for more hiking adventures, you should check out our video about the historic railroad tunnel. You can see that by clicking in the corner right now. We only have 2 climbs left to do on this trail. One is this little hill that you see right here, and the other one is that nasty steep one that gets you back to the parking lot. While this hill may not be incredibly long or have 1,000 feet of elevation gain, it is just tall enough to get you a little bit winded at the very end of the hike. Once you get to the top of this hill, you will be back at your car and you can say that you have conquered Owl Canyon, which I must say is a hike that gave us a lot more than we were expecting. Over the last couple of years, we have been exploring this area and found that it is packed full of amazing adventures. If you have any recommendations for us, please let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. Be sure to stay tuned for next week's video, which is Moapa Peak. That one is an absolute beast. And for all the information about Owl Canyon and other awesome Nevada adventures, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.